Okay.
This is a big one.
I know. I gotta get it together because this is a real important episode. We're making chocolate chip cookies. Possibly the greatest dessert of all time. Hey everyone, I'm Claire. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I am making chocolate chip cookies. I don't know why it took this long to get to this recipe, but I really felt like as the steward of everyone's most beloved baked good, I had a lot of work to do and I'm very proud of my chocolate chip cookie. So I'm gonna show you how I make it. No mixer required. I really wanted a cookie with a crispy edge, a chewy, gooey center, and the right balance between the butterscotch-y flavors from vanilla and brown sugar and all the chocolate mix in. It's a very easy recipe, but it has some very specific points within the process that's not like they're fussy, but it's just like I'm very particular about little tiny tweaks to get what for me is the ideal chocolate chip cookie. So that means things like using two different kinds of chocolate. I like to fold in milk chocolate and dark chocolate, chopping some of the chocolate so you get big pieces and then like little smaller bits folded in, and very importantly, browning the butter.
So why is yours the best though?
Good question, Cal. Mine is the best because I think it has the right balance of chocolate to dough. I like the mix of milk and dark chocolates because for me, too much dark chocolate is too intense and I don't enjoy it. And it has the best texture, the crispiest edge, the chewiest center, and so much flavor from brown butter. Plus tons of salt. Tons of salt, that's another key. But there's lots of those little moments throughout the recipe that all add up to make, for me, what is a superlative chocolate chip cookie. No special equipment, no mixer. It was important to me that this recipe be makeable by hand for pretty much anyone. So I'm just gonna use a bowl, a whisk, a spatula, and then I need a saucepan for making the brown butter, a couple sheet trays for baking, and if you have one, a 2-ounce scoop. If you don't have one, you can use a 1/4 cup measure. Ingredients, pretty straightforward. I have butter, 2 large eggs, a little baking soda, 2 tablespoons heavy cream. You could also use milk, kosher salt, vanilla extract, granulated sugar, dark brown sugar, all-purpose flour, and then milk chocolate and dark chocolate baking discs. So this milk chocolate is, I think, like a 40 to 45%, something like that, which is actually relatively dark for milk. And then this is a semi-sweet chocolate, I think it's 64%. I couldn't find milk chocolate baking discs, so I just got a bar and I chopped them up. But I'm actually gonna chop it up even more. I'll tell you why. I have a heat-proof spatula, which I use because I like to scrape the butter mixture and stir it around constantly. That is to prevent any of the milk solids from sticking to the pot and burning. The flavors of a chocolate chip cookie are, yes, chocolate, but importantly, also this butterscotchy cookie dough. And you get that butterscotch flavor from, first and foremost, butter. The higher quality the butter, the more milk solids you'll have. So butter is an emulsion of dairy fat, water, and milk solids. Now, water boils at 212 Fahrenheit. The actual temperature of the butter will not exceed that temperature until all the water has been boiled off. You want to moderate your heat and keep it on the lower side because it can go from not at all brown to golden brown to burn really fast. So I'm going to turn it down a little. I can still hear it boiling now, but it's boiling less. It's becoming a little quieter. And rather than having big bubbles, I'm starting to see more of a fine foam. This is about to start browning. So now I have it on low and I am letting it go until I see a shade or two past golden brown. I want to get a really dark but not burned butter. So this is looking good. I think I'm getting to that point. I'm going to turn off the heat. There's some foam in the way, but now you can see in the pot, these are those brown bits. You'll probably know if you burned it because 1, it's going to smell a little acrid, and 2, it will look black. This looks great. Now I'm going to add an ingredient you don't usually see in chocolate chip cookies or any cookie, and that is heavy cream. 2 tablespoons. It's cold. I just took it out of the fridge. I've now removed all of the water from the butter. And I actually want to add some of it back in to help build a little bit of structure. Water is what interacts with flour to create gluten. And I'm adding eggs, so there's water, there's a lot of water in egg whites, but I basically need a little additional moisture to help create an emulsified dough. At this point, the recipe follows a very straightforward cookie method, which is working the sugar into the fat, adding the eggs, and then adding the dry ingredients and chocolate. But before I do that, I want this mixture to cool down, because if I were to build the cookies starting with hot butter, I would not get the texture that I'm going for. I would get something that was more brittle and also had that greasy quality to it. So this has to cool down. It's a very slow ice dispenser, sorry. I'm mixing in a metal bowl, which is good for an ice bath because the temperature change happens quickly and it will transfer. A glass bowl is going to take a little longer, but just sit here and stir it, because what will happen if you leave it is you'll get like solid butter in contact with the bowl and then liquid on top, and I want everything to be homogeneous. So all you need is a whisk to make this. The mixture is opaque and I had some little pieces that were colder, so I'm just whisking until everything comes back together and is smooth and homogeneous. I can still whisk it, but it has totally cooled. You can also see that now the cream has emulsified in and I have something really smooth. So to this I'm adding equal amounts of brown sugar and granulated sugar, and I'm using dark brown sugar. With brown sugar you get chewy, with white sugar you get something crisp. I just split the difference and I figured use equal amounts, so it's 3/4 cup each. Go ahead and add them in. Whisk this in. I don't need to cream this until it's light and fluffy and pale like I was making a cake, because I don't want a lot of air in the batter. So as long as your mixture is very smooth and homogeneous, that's all the mixing you need to do. Now I'm going to add my eggs. These are large eggs. Whisk them in one at a time until well incorporated. You're going to see a transformation in the texture. It's going to take on a silkier appearance as the sugar dissolves in the additional water that you're adding from the egg white. You can see that once you've done that brown butter, the rest of it comes together very quickly. Next, I want to add my vanilla. So maybe you caught our vanilla episode. I have my homemade vanilla extract here. Please use a good quality vanilla extract. I don't think you have to spring for a whole bean, although if you wanted to splurge and add that, it would not be bad. I think that a high quality vanilla extract is really key to this recipe. Don't use the imitation stuff. So whisk that in. A tablespoon is a lot, but it's such an important addition in the way it skews the whole flavor profile toward that butterscotchy-ness, I guess. I don't know. That can set aside. I'm going to mix the dry ingredients. Very straightforward. I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Frankly, when I'm making this at home, I just add everything to the bowl and mix, but I'll go through the somewhat advisable but also extra step of mixing them separately. Now, a teaspoon of baking soda. Baking soda is really important to cookie making for a couple reasons. Primarily, it determines the spread of your cookies. If you were to make these without baking soda, they wouldn't spread very much in the oven. And now, kosher salt. I always use Diamond Crystal brand kosher salt. And with Diamond, I'm adding a full 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. If you're using Morton, use 1 teaspoon because it's saltier. I'm gonna do one somewhat fussy, but I think important step, chopping up some of the chocolate. You can use chips. I don't really have a problem with chocolate chips. I do prefer, though, something that is this shape. These are sort of discs. Sometimes they're called febs, which means beans, and so they have a more bean-like shape. When they're whole in cookies, they melt into like these sheets of chocolate. So I really like using discs in cookies. I couldn't find the milk chocolate discs, so I had a bar that I chopped up. I have 5 ounces of each type. I love milk chocolate. I know that maybe like a chocolate purist looks down on that. I don't really care. I like it. I like the sweetness. I like the creaminess. I like how it melts. So I'm using both. One thing I learned, this is something my husband taught me early on. It's like, why choose? It's not A or B, it's answer C, which is all of the above. I'm gonna chop half of each kind of chocolate because it's sort of like the principle when I make pie dough. It's like I really like having different sizes of the ingredients inside the cookies because I experience them differently when I eat them. So I really like having all that contrast in the cookie. What I really like about when I chop chocolate is you get like little dust like this. Normally this is annoying, but in this case I like it because when that gets added to the dough, it like blends into the dough and almost makes parts of the dough chocolate flavored. But then you also get like this in there. So I'm ready to finish the dough. Dry ingredients go in. At this point I can whisk it. The dough for these cookies is usually pretty loose. If your butter was pretty solid, you might need to switch to a spatula. Like my butter was pretty solid, so let's switch back to my spatula to fold in the chocolate. But make sure you get everything off the whisk. Okay. So now I'm really liking the way this looks. It holds its shape, but it's a little bit loose. That's normal. Now add your chocolate. You can see like it's not a hard recipe. It comes together pretty fast once you have the butter. I'm just making sure I get those particles of chocolate dust in there. Sometimes there's batters that I don't want to eat. And then sometimes I make chocolate chip cookies and I would sit here and like bit by bit pick out a piece of chocolate, a little scoop of the batter on it. And just like, so good. We cannot bake this yet. We are not going to have chocolate chip cookies. Well, we are going to have them soon because I made a swap. But if you're making these at home and you reach this stage, I'm sorry to say, I'm going to ask you to wait. There's an important process that happens when you age cookie dough and you chill it. We'll talk about why as I scoop them, but there's a pretty crucial step. I understand the impulse to skip it, but maybe don't. Maybe go ahead and wait. If you don't have a scoop, you can use a 1/4 cup. You can also just make them smaller. There's no reason why I can't do a 1.5 ounce portion. I'm just doing it as I wrote it in the book. Make sure you have really level scoops. And then I'm going to place them on this baking sheet. Now, because I'm chilling them, I don't need to space them out as I would if I were baking them. So you can place these close together. And in fact, it probably would all fit on a 1/4 sheet. So you can see this is like a big mound of dough. So why am I asking you to age the cookie dough? A few things happen when you let cookie dough sit in the fridge before baking. What's happening is the butter is solidifying, some of the sugar is recrystallizing, and there's sort of like almost a curing process that happens. And the end result is a cookie that is chewier, has more developed flavor, and like in every way is superior to a cookie that I bake straight off. I say sort of at least 12 hours and up to 48, but even a couple hours will help. If you can muster 4 hours, that's fine. So I'm portioning them out before I age the dough because if I were to stick this whole bowl in the fridge, it becomes one solid block of dough that's then very hard to portion. So it's much easier to work with room temp dough for this stage. I realize that these are giant cookies, but I do find that cookies this size give you more contrast with cookies this size between the crispy edge and the gooey, chewy center. So I didn't arrange them in the best pattern, but I have 18 equal portions of dough, 2 ounces each. One thing you can do to get a really sort of extra photogenic look to your cookies is every couple cookies, take a disc of chocolate and just kind of stick it on the top. And then that kind of melts into the cookie and will give you a really classic photo in a cookbook kind of look. So now I'm going to cover this and chill the dough. Once the dough has set so that butter will harden, you can actually take them off of the baking sheet and put them in like a Tupperware or in a bag and then store them that way and free up some space. So I'm going to put a lid on here. Okay, will that work? Yes. So fortunately, I planned ahead and I made some dough and I chilled it. Now I made the dough at this point 3 days ago. So after 2 days in the fridge, I transferred them to the freezer because I didn't want them to sit for too long in the fridge. So I have some frozen cookie dough, and I'm going to show you how to bake them. So the first thing is to preheat to 350. I have a confession to make. I forgot to chop the chocolate when I made these. So these are not going to have the kind of chocolate distribution that is ideal. So you can see these balls of dough, they look a little bit different because they don't have those little tiny bits of chocolate that got distributed throughout. So this is going to have more distinct textures between chocolate and cookie, but that's okay. So these spread out and get pretty large, so I don't want to crowd them too much. I can fit 6 of these on a baking sheet. So I'm at 350. These go into the oven. I'm going to rotate them halfway because sometimes the one that's on the bottom is getting less heat, so there's less browning. So I'll rotate halfway through, and they go 18 to 20 minutes, and I'm looking for a golden brown edge and a pale, slightly shiny interior, and then they kind of set as they cool. The centers have puffed a little bit, and that's because of the eggs, and they will settle as they cool. At this stage, the cookies are pretty delicate, so I don't want to touch them. I will let them cool on the baking sheets for 5 minutes or so, and then I'm going to transfer them to a wire rack to finish cooling. One thing that you get when you age the cookie dough is you get more of that wrinkly edge, which I love. So they look great even without my chopped chocolate addition. So I'm just going to wait for them to cool. I haven't had my lunch dessert yet. I'm very excited to eat one of these, and I want to pick the one that I like best to show you and to taste. Maybe it might be this one. It has this crispy edge and this still gooey warm center, and I love how sort of browned and like golden and caramelized they get, and then the center is still soft and delicious. So I love you get like crispy, chewy, soft, plus the melted chocolate. It's everything I want in a cookie. So I'm gonna go ahead and taste. Okay, it's still really hot. I probably should have waited, but I can't. Okay. Oh my God, they're really hot. Ow. God. This is a good cookie. While a warm chocolate chip cookie, it's certainly up there with the best desserts ever. But even a room temperature, cold, frozen, all of the above chocolate chip cookie is so delicious. I really, really love having a mix of milk and dark chocolates in here. And then to have the contrast between the gooey, sweet and bittersweet chocolates and all of that brown buttery cookie dough there's no finer chocolate chip cookie for me in my book. I really hope you try this recipe. Give brown butter a shot. It is such an upgrade for any cookie recipe you have, especially chocolate chip cookies, and it's worth seeking out a good chocolate and a good vanilla extract for these. Thank you for watching. Love showing you dessert person recipes, and we'll be back with more. And in the meantime, I'm gonna pour myself a glass of milk. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.